who are still hanging around, they can connect.
Yeah, no problem with that. Inshallah, everybody will be in soon. Prof. Jesse, Odeh, we can start. Prof.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Me to start or to introduce me?
I will start the
sure, I'm ready.
Inshallah.
Yes, please.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. I welcome all our participants to our 11th Istac-World Professorial Lecture today. All our participants, our UMC members, deans, directors, professors, doctors, and all the participants from Malaysia and elsewhere, those who are following us in the Zoom here and also in the YouTube channel, I welcome you to the 11th Iwpl lecture, and we are very much honored today to have with us Professor Odeh Rashid Al-Jayyousi, one of the great scholars and experts in the area of innovation, sustainability, and also worldview. Dear brothers and sisters, today we are having this 11th World Professorial Lecture, which started a year ago with the lecture of our rector, Professor Zulkifli Abdel-Razak, the rector of the International Islamic University, on the topic of a model of the university the world needs in post-COVID situation. Then followed by lectures and by great scholars from Malaysia and elsewhere in the world. Today we are having with us another scholar who combines in himself not only the scientific background, but also the Islamic background when dealing with the issues of sustainability and the issues of innovation. Brothers and sisters, let us all welcome Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi to our lecture today.
Thank you. Bismillah.
No problem. Bismillah. Before we start our lecture, let me give you a little background and a brief biodata of our Professor Odeh. His CV is a very long one, but I'm going to focus on certain things that tells a lot about his expertise, knowledge, and contributions, not only to the Ummah, but to the world in general. Brothers and sisters, dear participant, Professor Odeh obtained his Bachelor in Civil Engineering from Yarmouk University, Jordan in 1984. His MUUP, Urban Planning and Policy, University of Illinois at Chicago, USA in 1990. And his PhD in Urban Planning and Policy, University of Illinois at Chicago, USA, 1993. Professor Odeh worked in many capacities. Professor Odeh is now currently working in the Arabian Gulf University, Bahrain, since 2015. He served as Vice President, Science and Research, Royal Scientific Society, September 2011-2013. He served also Regional Director, International Union for Conservation of Nature, Switzerland, April 2004-2011. Academic Director, MBE in Transformation Management in Buckingham University, London, UK 2000-2004. Professor and Dean of Scientific Research, Applied Science, University, 1993-2003. He served also planning analyst, Mitra Office of Planning and Analysis, Chicago, Illinois, 1991-1993. The niche area of our professor, among others, sustainable innovation and eco-innovation, innovation policy and technology policy, smart cities and disruptive technology, open and user innovation, national innovation system analysis, social innovation theory and practice. Professor Odeh published many books and articles. Among his books, Integral Innovation, New Worldviews, Yuki, Tylers, and Frankis. Renewable Energy in the Arab World, Transfer of Knowledge, and Prospects for Arab Cooperation. Integral Innovation and Technology Management, A Worldview. And one of his best books is Islam and Sustainable Development, New Worldviews, Transformation and Innovation. Other related expertise of our professor, he worked as UN expert with UN ESCWA Technology for Sustainable Development. He also worked as senior consultant, GIZ, UNDP, World Bank, and other places. Before I call upon Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi to deliver his lecture, I would like to mention what has been said about his book on Islam and Sustainable Development, New Worldviews, Transformation and Innovation. In Islam and Sustainable Development, Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi addresses the social, human, and economic dimensions of sustainability from an Islamic perspective. Islam is sometimes viewed as a challenge, threat, and risk to the West. But here we are reminded that the celebration of cultural diversity is a key component in Islamic values, promoting understanding between East and West. This American educated Middle Eastern based author and scholar offers something broader and deeper than conventional Western ways of thinking about sustainability and presents new insights inspired by Islamic worldview. With this introduction, I call Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi to start delivering his lecture. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. First of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude to dear Honorable Professor Tan Sri Datu Dhul Kifl bin Abdul Razak, Rector of International Islamic University in Malaysia, and the Professor Dr. Abdul Razak Barghouth, Dean of the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, Istac at IUM, for the invitation to Istac-World Professional Lecture. Respected University Management Committee members, Dean, Directors, Professors, Scholars, Researchers, Postgraduate students, professional, all participants from Malaysia and elsewhere, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all of you. My lecture today is a summary of my book, Islam and Sustainable Development. And I try to incorporate my reflections as a professional, as a consultant in innovation, transportation, and sustainability. The outline for my lecture, I first of all want to address the global context in terms of the state of environment and the state of economic development paradigm. I'd like to talk about the ecological crisis and the other financial crisis, and what did we learn from COVID, and then I will allude to an Islamic paradigm or model for sustainable development. The key questions for my lecture are as follows. I'd like to address these questions. The first one is, do we have a model for sustainable development in Islam? Or does Islam offer a model or a framework for prosperity and progress, or hayat tayyiba, good life? Also, another question I'd like to address in this lecture is, how can we rethink and revisit sustainability in terms of climate change, and what would be the Islamic discourse for climate change and from the Islamic worldview? The context, if we look at the global context, we can see that the economic Western model had failed people and had failed nature. We are seeing a lot of pollution, climate change is an indicator for market failure. And we also are seeing a policy failure and system failure when you look at the financial crisis, when you look at poverty, and we look at also conflicts around the world. So we are facing a systemic challenge in terms of market failure, policy failure, and system failure. That's why we need to revisit and get inspiration from Islam as Rahma lil Alameen, mercy for humanity, to frame and articulate a new model and paradigm for sustainability for a human civilization, not only for nature. We are faced with what we call post-colonialism mindset. The Muslim Ummah, the Muslim world, was faced with colonialism, and this resulted in adopting of the Western model to solve our problems in the East. So in many cases now we are faced with notions of consumerism, materialism, and secularism. And the challenge is that we are faced with what we call the overworked American, and now we are faced with the overworked Muslims. We see that we need a redefinition of progress and a redefinition of happiness, since due to Westernization, there was an equating of modernization with Westernization. So we need to do this decoupling of this notion, and we need to have a new definition of the other, since in imperialism, Muslims were defined as the other. What we are seeing that there is a divergence in paradigms between East and West, as we can see in terms of what's halal, what's right, what's wrong, in terms of what we are faced with social relativism, what we see now in the gender debate, or the financial debate, or the economic debate, or the ecological debate. We are seeing the absence of spirituality and the absence of al-wahi. And we have two paths, either haqq or wahi. And our role as stewards and the guardians or trustees is to mainstream Islam in all ways of life, in terms of biology, ecology, environment, and sustainable development. What we are seeing is that the two key challenges from Darwin to the economic theory of Adam Smith, that there are two worldviews that are shaped by money or economics, biology and economics. So the debate about evolution versus creation, or the notion of money, how money is creating value. What we are seeing after the financial crisis in the last decade, that money grows with debt, and the more you have debt, the more you have money. So the economic financial system is designed to have more debt, and to foster nurture what we call a dependency model. So in order to have our own mission, we need to come out of the dependency model, and the question of money and how money is being as a medium for creating happiness, and for also deepening dependency of developing countries through IMF and World Bank policies. So we need to rethink the economic model in terms of these two domains. Now I will allude to some global trends in terms of ecology and what's happening at health and after the COVID. historically, in the last 5 decades, since the early 60s, we have a number of publications. One is The Silent Spring, which talks about pollution from the chemical industries in the US. Then in the 80s and 70s, we have The Limits of Growth in the Club of Rome. And then there was other publication, Our Common Future, and the Transition to Sustainability in IUCN, and also the notion of natural capital or the next industrial revolution. As we can see in the last 5 decades, there was a lot of narratives of how we can overcome the ecological crisis. But still, till this moment, we are facing a lot of what we call ecological amnesia, and we are facing what we call a nature deficit disorder. Another notion, we can see that part of the current economic model is failing people. We can see the widening gap between the rich and the poor. Few people, 25 people, very limited amount of people, they own half of the amount of wealth in the entire universe, and they consume most of resources in terms of energy and resources. So we can see the widening gap between the have and the have-nots. And also we can see what we call great acceleration of consumption in terms of goods, in terms of tourism, in terms of pollution and consumption at all levels. So this graph tells us a story of this infinite growth. This paradigm of infinite growth is not sustainable. We cannot go for this forever, since there is a carrying capacity and a planetary limits for our universe. And also in terms of the geopolitics, we can see north-south divide. We can see the north rich in terms of GDP, in terms of economic indicators and health indicators and intellectual property. We can see a global divide between north and south, as you can see. And as you can see, the Muslim countries are located in the southern part, in the have-not domain. The ecological crisis, as I mentioned, people will argue that socialism collapsed, communism collapsed because they forget our social capital, and people will argue that capitalism may collapse because it's overlooking our natural capital. We are faced with what we call multiple problems. One is that humans suffer from ecological amnesia. We care more about our saving account. We don't care about our ecosystem services, our forests, our oceans. And also we tend to have blind spots, and there is a nature deficit disorder. There is illusion that money can solve our ecological problem, and there is illusion that it's irreversible. And in many cases, as we know, pollution can be irreversible. We need to be careful to realize the carrying capacity of the universe. There is a carrying capacity. However, the trend of overconsumption is telling us a story of there is a limit for this growth. So we need to do a decoupling from energy consumption and development. So this decoupling is very critical, since, as we can see, markets do not tell us the ecological truth. And we can see also the idea of cost of war. There are some publications on the cost of war. This is an example of the cost of war in Iraq. And you can see the same thing about Afghanistan. There is a huge trillions of money were spent on wars. And if this money were spent on human development or social development, I think this will be much better for the entire world. We are realizing again that there is planetary boundaries, and we need to be careful about tipping points. And we are living what we call Anthropocene Era, because the human-made development are causing a lot of gas emissions. We need to be careful of that. We are reaching also the peak oil era, and we can see now the war in Europe energy is energy and food security is one of the manifestation of the disruption in the current world. Going back to physics, when man landed on the moon in the early 70s, late 60s, people realized that we live in a fragile planet. So we need to be careful about our ecological footprint. We need to be careful about our development models, since there are limits for this planet where we don't live in a limitless Earth. However, part of the challenge of sustainability is related to the mindset or the worldview. One of the models look at overlapping domains between environment, economy, and society. As you can see, the red three colors. The other model that looks at the broader perspective where environment, our natural capital, underpins our society and underpins our financial capital. So we need our perspective of environment or ecosystem makes a big difference in terms of trade-offs. In the other model, the blue, red, and yellow, it says that if we pollute the environment, then money can fix pollution. And in the other model says, well, we cannot invest on a dead planet. We need to be careful that our natural capital underpins our human civilization. So different worldviews. One of the key questions in my presentation today is relating to what is development. As we can see that development is a complex process that is designed to induce systemic change that is built on governance, education, and innovation. However, we are faced with this dilemma of the reference point of Westernization versus modernization, and equating modernization with Westernization, and losing our authentic traditional identity and methodology of research and innovation. When we can see that the Reformation or Enlightenment in Europe was based on a secular model, and now we need to have our own enlightenment and reformation in the Muslim Ummah based on spirituality and maqasid. What we can see now, part of the trying to find a solution for development in the world, we are seeing many names, many acronyms and labels for development. We can see notions of degrowth. We can see notions of prosperity without growth. There are notions of what we call sharing economy, circular economy, moral economy, and emission economy. And in my lecture, I want to conclude that we need to base our Islamic model into a moral economy and a mission economy. That we will come later. As we can see that we cannot continue to conquer and dominate nature without a cost, there is a cost for this development, and there is a spiritual crisis. The core of this problem is a moral and spiritual problem. The core of the ecological crisis is simply moral and spiritual problem, since it's based on a mechanistic Newtonian model that you can use nature as commodity rather than as a sustainer for our human civilization. Also, we need to move from knowing and doing to becoming. And this leads us to the three levels of Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. We know that Islam is about doing things, Iman is about the work of heart, and Ihsan is more of deeper consciousness and mindfulness. And we can see here that the first domain of Islam, submission, it addresses the sacred dimension while Iman, faith, it addresses the ethical component. The third level is Ihsan, which is more of doing good and doing the right things, which is part of the political economy. So we need to move from these three levels, from the sacred to the ethical dimension to the political economy. And also in terms of Istac and notions of Islam and science and innovation, we need to look at development at 4 dimensions in terms of science, in terms of innovation, and in terms of moral development and culture and knowledge creation. So these 4 dimensions of ensuring what we call indigenous authentic development is crucial for co-creating an authentic Islamic model that is based on local and global, they call it localized or indigenous authentic dimension that links science, innovation, and knowledge creation with civilization. These are the basic principles of Tawhid. The core of sustainability in Islam is founded under Tawhid, which is based on what we call mizan, balance, based on science. We refer to science in Quran and nature as science, and also justice and stewardship. What we can see now, the word shay in Arabic means thing. Shay in the secular world, it means material, it's non-living. However, in Islam, we believe, as the verse says in Surah Al-Isra, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ كُلٌّ قَدْ عَلِمَ صَلَاتَهُ وَتَسْبِيحَهُ. We believe that everything in this universe, from an atom to a butterfly, to a human being, to a tree, is alive, intelligent, and articulate. And if you go to now, if we refer to quantum physics and the idea of superposition and the idea of string theory and consciousness, physicists, they talk about what they call consciousness of the matter. And part of our role as stewards and guardians of this earth is to make sure that we create harmony and balance at all levels, at the social domain, economic domain, and ecological domain. And as we can see that every living thing is in a state of prayer, tasbih and sujood. And if we hurt any species, from a butterfly to a human being or any tree, that means we are silencing a community of worshippers. So since we live in a spiritual earth, the earth is a masjid, and the names of Allah Al-Muhit means it's everything. It contains every Al-Muhit. It's the entire space and time. And our nature is another book of sign. We have 2 books, Al-Kitab al-Mastur wal-Kitab al-Mandur. Al-Kitab al-Mastur is the Quran, and Al-Kitab al-Mandur is our nature and cosmos. And part of the challenge is how we can see the spirituality and the spiritual dimension of this universe, since a prayer underpins our life. And we can see that there is a creator, there is a creation, since there is some people will argue about intelligent design or evolution, but we believe in creation, and there is earth as a masjid. جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا. So we look at the entire earth as a masjid. So we need to protect this sacred space through responsible development and ethical and moral development. The Islamic worldview, in a nutshell, we can summarize it in these 3 domains, that humans and natures have the same origins. That's why we need to develop what we call a ecocosmic narrative about the universe and the earth, since the creation of cosmos and the humans they go in the same parallel trajectory. And also Tawhid, the unity, Tawhid, oneness of origin, oneness of destiny, and oneness of responsibility. However, we can see that the Western education is based on fragmentation or deconstruction of natural sciences and social sciences, destruction of what we call human gender, destruction of art and science. In Islam, we believe in Tawhid, Tawhid of art and science, the Tawhid, oneness of social sciences and natural sciences, and Tawhid of the human destiny and responsibility. Species are viewed as nations like humans, Ummah amthalukum. So all species, from a butterfly to an elephant to a tree, they are nations like us. We need to take care of, we are gardeners, we are not only consumers. Now talking about NASA and the quantum physics, the recent exploration of NASA, وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ, it tells us interesting signs about Quran, that this universe, we are only a nanoparticle as part of this story of universe. In this last 13 billion years, when you look at time and space, there is symmetry. There is astonishing symmetry in universe. I refer you to the lecture on YouTube to Neil Torok, and the title of the lecture is Astonishing Simplicity of Everything. In this lecture, Astonishing Simplicity of Everything, we can see that there is singularity is evident, there is oneness, there is Tawhid, there is simplicity, there is normal distribution in the galaxy. You can see there is order and symmetry. It's astonishing. There is no randomness. There is a creation. And in this, we used to think that there's only few galaxies, limited galaxies. Now we are realizing we have more than 100 billion galaxies, and each galaxy contains 100 billion stars. But also there is symmetry. There is normal distribution. There is what we call geometric mean. The largest element is 10 to the power 25. The smallest element entity is 10 to the minus 35. In the middle, there is the human cell is 10 to the minus 5, what we call geometric mean. So there is astonishing geometry, astonishing symmetry in the universe, from the atom, from the nanoparticle to the galaxy. Also, time and space, we can see the universe is a giant bell. There is waves. Everything is a wave function. There is a space function, and we are waves. Realizing that there is a possibility wave of 0 and 1, but there is a system of this wave and particle combination. And again, there is space and time are connected, and we have what we call dark energy. 70% of the universe is dark energy, and we have expanding universe. وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. And this science is leading us to faith. Science is giving us the lens, the prism, to see the creator and to see the universe. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِ بِرَبِّكَ أَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. So these signs of the creation is giving us more close eye on our role in life and our story of creation. This also leads us to sustainability is not a self-interest group. We are not only concerned about saving dolphins or elephants or the tigers, Asian tigers, but rather it's about sustaining human civilization, sustaining human dignity. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. So we know part of the hadith from Rasul ﷺ that there is civilizational cycles. على رأس كل قرن من يجدد لهذا الأمة دينها. Every 100 years there is innovators, there is mujtahideen that will renew the discourse, the narrative, and the mission for the Ummah. And the innovators could be in all disciplines. It's not only confined to Sharia. It could be in science, technology, economics, and social sciences. So we need this Ummah of mujtahideen. Ijtihad can be institutionalized. It's not in only one individual. It should be institutionalized with a mission. So we need to understand these social laws, and we need to understand the cycles of renewals, and to have a mission for Istac and for the Islamic University in Malaysia to contribute to the civilizational renewal. Again, to summarize what we talked about fitra, what we are seeing now in the debate of gender and social relativism in the West, what we are seeing is going away from fitra, going away from wahi, between the debate about gender and human rights issues and pro-life or pro-choice, because we are deviating from spirituality, Tawhid principle, the fitra principle, the creation principle, and also the Mizan principle, what we saw in the order and harmony in this universe, and also stewardship and guardianship. We need to take a leadership role as guardians, trustees, and stewards to ensure this balance between at all levels, at economy, ecology, and social domain. What did we learn from COVID-19? The butterfly effect. I think COVID-19 told us that individual action can have a global impact. And also we need to rethink our globalization networks. And it taught us many things about resilience and innovation and the idea of trusting a public sector and technology as well. The Islamic development model. Do we have an Islamic development model? And part of the challenge is, again, terminology. How we need to make a distinction between development versus growth. Development is making things better. Growth is making things bigger. So I think we need, cancer is making things bigger. So cancer is not development, it's growth. So we need to have responsible growth, which is development that has balance between social domain and economic domain and ecological domain. Rethinking in hindsight, now we are seeing a lot of our spiritual cities, enlightenment cities in Damascus, Baghdad, Jerusalem, and Cairo. These were cities of enlightenment in the golden age. And after that, in the Umayyad and the Cordoba and the Spanish rule of Muslims. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad during Al-Ma'mun time, we need to revive this enlightenment era that we used to have in Baghdad, Cairo, Damascus, and Jerusalem to ensure a redefinition of progress, a redefinition of happiness, and a redefinition of success. So we are not only consumers, we are gardeners. We need to protect our garden, and the garden is the entire universe. This is the title of my book, Islam and Sustainable Development, and this is the translation in Arabic. And in this book, I looked at this, this model. This is the summary of the framework of the book from Surah Al-Nahl. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. I looked at these 4 dimensions: justice, excellence, ihsan, and I looked at Arham as social capital from all of humanity, from Brazil to Asia to Africa to Mesoamerica, and also Mizan, the balance and the order. So these are the 4 dimensions of my sustainability in Islam as I see it, which are based on justice, excellence, or continual improvement, and social capital and balance. And also the 2 domains are basically good life, حياة طيبة, and عمارة الأرض, عمران, construction of the earth. So our role is not only consumers as the capitalist model is promoting, but rather we have a role to construct the earth responsibly and beautifully. I use in Surah Al-Nahl, if you look at the وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ, the inspiration, the innovation journey start with a female bee. There is a diffusion of innovation, incubation, and value creation. فيه شفاء للناس, value creation. So if you look at the journey of bee, we can see that women are a pillar, a cornerstone for any sustainable development. We need I like this metaphor that we need to be look at the metaphor of a honeybee, that anything it eats is clean, anything it drops is sweet, and any branch it sits upon does not break. So we need to make sure to ensure to mainstream gender and mainstream women in development, since they are the honeybees for development. And also we have a role to maintain balance and harmony. Ihsan, this is a nice hadith from Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, which says that the world is green and beautiful, and Allah had appointed you as his steward. So we need to make sure that we are the right stewards. Again, what constitutes a good life? If you look at Tafsir Al-Qurtubi and other Tafasir, Ibn Abbas, they say good life, Hayat Tayyiba, is not about accumulation of goods. Hayat Tayyiba is about empathy, about human empathy. Hayat Tayyiba is about the sense of belonging. It's about social capital and about human connection. And also Islam is about conservation, and to avoid waste. We need to promote what we call degrowth. I call it as zuhd. Zuhd is about degrowth, which is about decoupling consumption from economic growth. Our social capital, al-arham, we need to be the median community. We need to have a kalima sawa. We need to have a common word, kalima sawa, and we need to have ummah wasat, a median community. So common word, kalima sawa, or ummah wasat as a median community is crucial to avoid extremism and to avoid going into social relativism or atheism. So Ummah Wasat is a celebration of what we call a Medina model. Medina model is a model of sharing economy or circular economy based on SDGs. It's celebrating unity within diversity. People from Asia, Persia, Africa, and Europe, they were able to contribute to the Islamic civilization throughout its journey. So the Medina model is a balanced model for human empathy and for a human celebration for human diversity. This is the model for sustainable development from the base. The base is about amana and taskhir. Amana, the earth is created for us. The upper level is about innovation as an enabler. And adl and maqasid is the intermediate ends. And the ultimate ends is about nafs al-mutma'inna, tazkiyat al-nafs. So the foundation is about al-amana, trusteeship, and the upper model is about nafs al-mutma'inna, which is seeking the pleasure of Allah. Again, part of capitalism, Adam Smith, when he talks about the capital, it's about the pursuit of happiness. What is happiness? Islam redefines happiness in terms of adding value to life, in terms of family values, in terms of morality. So a moral economy is the cornerstone of our future redefinition of progress and enlightenment. Ibn Khaldun as well, part of his contribution in sociology of the cycles of civilization, he developed what we call a theory of Imran, theory of construction. In Ibn Khaldun, theory of Imran, he talks about good governance, morality, and good government, and good institutions in order to promote responsible development. Now we are faced with a number of models of core and periphery in geopolitics and economic development. The core countries, they are core rich countries who utilize the resources in Africa and Asia and the Middle East. There are the core countries, and there is periphery countries that the north or the rich countries, they use the cheap labor and markets for these countries. And we have in the middle, we have semi-periphery countries. And as we can see, Muslim countries, mainly they are in these last two categories. So we need to overcome the dependency theory and to have our own mission and our own story. Why do we need that? The reason for that is that the market economy is confronted with a more what we call system failure, not only a policy failure and a market failure, as we can see as it's manifested in food, oil, finance, money, climate, and health. So there is complex, compound, multidimensional crisis at all levels, which tells us that we need a paradigm shift. When you have a paradox, you need a paradigm shift. And we resulted in another model in rich countries, in oil-rich countries or resource-rich countries, in welfare state that you spend on public sector. But again, we need to balance between market economy and welfare state in order to have a balanced development model. Again, metrics for sustainability, it's very critical. How we define development? Is it per GDP or per ecosystem services or per GNH, national happiness? So metrics for we need to redefine the metrics or the index for sustainability, not only based on consumption, GDP, but rather we need to go beyond GDP to have to include spirituality, happiness, and other dimensions. Maqasid is one dimension to look at redefinition of progress, which it's about protecting human life, protecting wealth, posterity, and reason and faith. So we need, there is part of the Maqasid model is a model that we can look at and consider when we try to set priorities and trade-offs and multi-criteria analysis for development. The Muslim Ummah paradox, I'll try to conclude in a few minutes, if I have time. Dr. Abdulaziz.
Yeah, Prof, you go on. We will not stop you.
Okay, so 10 minutes, inshallah. So there is an Ummah paradox, the Muslim Ummah paradox. As we can see, there is a divide between rich and poor in Muslim countries, and there is poverty alongside affluence. There is, you can see rich Muslim nations and poor nations, and we need to address this schism. Pursuit of happiness, again, more focus on the overworked American. We don't want to go ila juhr al-dab. We don't want to move in the same track that the Western civilization has went into and pursued happiness through material needs rather than a balance between spiritual and material needs. The reality of Muslim nations, and we can see there is a wide gulf between Sharia and practice, Amanu wa Amru Salihat. There is a schism between Iman and Amal. And also we can see that the many remedies, many policies in the Muslim Ummah, they are borrowed from the Western context. That's why they are ineffective. So we need to have a local understanding of our problems and to have local solutions. A reform agenda to localize SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals as a global agenda. We need to mainstream, Islamize these agendas through harmonizing, humanizing market forces. Islamization would help Muslim countries to humanize market forces. We need to restructure finance like the halal model and the Islamic institution model in order to produce a new green and moral economy. These are some models that we can look at in terms of low carbon transition as zuhd in Islam, ecological acid as imaratul ard fil Islam, and also social goods, which are our arham in Islam, and decent livelihood. It is about dignity, karama. The mission economy. This is interesting literature on mission economy and policy. Literature, people in economics, they look at in Kennedy era, in the early 60s, when the US and during Kennedy era landed man on the moon. This mission, landing man on the moon, resulted in a lot of innovation in IT and aviation, nuclear energy and nanotechnology and other technologies. So the key message here is that solutions will not come from market. The role of government is not only to fix the market, the role of the government is to set direction. So it's very critical for governments to have a clear vision and mission to set direction and not leave it all to the market to fix it. So we don't want just band-aids in terms of pollution or clean air or investment or monopoly or finance. The government is not only for band-aid, government is to set direction. So we cannot leave it all to market. We need to have policy that are conscious and authentic to set direction for a new mission to human dignity. Now the question is, what would be the mission for Muslim Ummah? How can we articulate a smart mission for the Muslim Ummah? A Muslim, one idea, I mean, these are not new ideas, but we need to institutionalize and revive these ideas. One of the old ideas that to have a global zakah institution, a global zakah fund, a global waqf fund that can be also enabled by smart technologies like blockchain and fintech and social media. And there are other models in terms of Hima, revival of arid land, Ihya al-Ard al-Mawat, as a global initiative. If you revive a land, you own it. So you build a sense of ownership, a new paradigm for ICT platform, crowdfinancing, and Hima as a protected area, halal food model. So we have many models that we can have our mission to produce what we call Rahma lil Alameen. So our mission is not only to enhance economic growth, but rather is to have dignity and to have a balance between spiritual and human needs, and also to present what we call a moral economy and a mission economy for the entire universe. The key messages, to conclude, one key message is we need to have only more than two eyes. We have three eyes. One eye is about faith, Iman. The second eye is about science, ilm. And the third eye is about ijtihad. So these are the three eyes that we need to have: faith, science, and innovation nexus. We need to have this nexus with the three eyes to move forward. Faith is about Iman, قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم. Ilm, there is limitless amount of ilm. And innovation, أنتم أدرى بشؤون دنياكم. You know what's better for you. This is the Medina culture and mindset. This is the narrative of Medina, which is about exploration, using design thinking and using exploration to devise new solutions. And also it's about dignity, human dignity, and end of injustice everywhere, in the Middle East, in Asia, Africa, and anywhere. Since we have human dignity, we need to end war, justice, and apartheid everywhere in the world. We need to harness the power of now, the power of perspective. We need to have our own dream, and we need to have harness the power of diaspora, the networks, people in Asia, Africa, and Europe, in order to expand our human empathy. So there is a power of now and the power of perspective. Again, to summarize, in Surah Al-Rum, there is the verse which says, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. There is لعلهم يرجعون. There is an opportunity to go back and to make balance. There is injustice. Fasad is a broader word for imbalance. But however, there is an opportunity for learning from our mistakes and to rethink our development model and our consumption patterns to ensure human dignity and human happiness. This is the verse, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر, Surah Al-Rum, verse 41, which tells us that we have an opportunity to redirect our mission. Finally, we need to redefine our ecological crisis. It's not about numbers, it's about healing the universe. So we need to have a new narrative. We need to shift the narrative. It's not about protecting elephant or whales. It's about healing the ecosystems. رحمة للعالمين. رحمة وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده. We need to revive the symphony of life, to protect our symphony of life, and to protect the human dignity and human أمم أمثالكم, all sort of life on this universe. And one key message: we need to have healing at all domains. So the COVID-19, we need to have a vaccine for poverty and vaccine for social problems and vaccine for COVID-19. So we have to have many vaccines. We cannot count on collapse to compel us. We need to have hope and optimism. إنه لا يأس من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون. Islam is about optimism rather than doom and gloom. And the key message is that we have to look at the Global Humanity Forum, Mecca, as a global forum for human emancipation and human dignity and human knowledge co-creation. Mecca as a global forum. And the key message is that we have an ummah, we are a nation of a mandate. We are ummah wasat, we are a median community, and we need to make sure that we revisit our cultural innovation, learn from nature, and we need to go beyond efficiency to start with people. We need to go beyond survey to start with stories and narratives. We need to go beyond demographics to go to human behavior. The synthesis, to conclude, humanity cannot continue to grow infinitely since business as usual is not sustainable. The cost of inaction is high. Solution in terms of technical innovation, markets and policy are available, but we need a holistic approach. Our life is from Allah to Allah. And the final, I love this hadith from Prophet Muhammad والسلام, that if it's the last day of judgment, and if you have a small palm tree, you need to plant it. إذا قامت الساعة وفي يد أحدكم فسيلة فليغرسها. So the Islamic discourse is about optimism. It's not about doom and gloom. So you can compel people with hope, not by fear. ولكل وجهة هو موليها فاستبقوا الخيرات. We need to harness good. We need to collect the good and to collect wisdom in order to be رحمة للعالمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Thank you, Prof, for this great lecture. We have learned a lot from your wisdom and the way how you articulate the topic and the richness of ideas. I think this is one of our best Istac-World Professorial lectures, and you have craftily summarized the book, and not only as knowledge, but it can be used like a framework for policy making, for looking at the issues that face the Ummah. I really thank you, Prof, for this very informative, very deep, and very articulate lecture. And I believe that all our participants in the Zoom here and in the YouTube have enjoyed listening to you, Prof, and to your simple yet powerful style of presentation. So this is really something great. I would like to, before I open for the questions and answers, I would like to mention that the thoughts and ideas brought by our Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi today, they really resonate in what's happening in the university. And our university in the last few years, speaking about this idea of humanizing education, about values, spirituality, ethics, and sustainable development. When Prof Odeh was speaking, I see, look like our rector is speaking and our professors are speaking. So this is really makes your thoughts and ideas more relevant to us and to what we do in our university. So with this introduction, I would like to open for the discussions. We will have some questions which we have from the YouTube and also in the Zoom, and then we will open also for our scholars, professors who are with us here to give their questions and comments. We will have around 30 to 40 minutes questions and answers from our professors, so that we maximize and optimize the presence of Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi with us today. I would like just to start with one question given by Professor Khaliq Ahmed, our former Dean of the Kulliyah of Economics. Prof. Khaliq says, "Dear Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi, thank you for your wonderful lecture. My question is about the SDG, which has 17 areas, but this has missed the agenda of spirituality. It is, again, the Western or secular agenda, especially Protestant ones, since in their planning, they always means the role of the creator and sustainer. Why 56 Muslim countries not doing anything to introduce this missing element? My guess is that even Western, especially Catholic countries, will support this agenda, since our values are quite close with Catholic value system." Any comment, Prof. Odeh, on this?
Sure. I think this is part of the dilemma. There is the absence of secular. This is the idea of the secularization of knowledge, and the schism between science and faith, and church and state. The idea of separation, of deconstruction of science and spirituality is part of the challenge. The West were successful in the deconstruction, but they failed to do unification and to have a holistic approach. And I think part of the Islamic mission is to regain this type of holistic approach, and to have this oneness and unity between mind and soul, art and science, social and economic sciences, and humanity, our origin and destiny. This is part of the challenge of this secular world. And I think we have the faith community need to work together. All faiths need to work together in order to mainstream and articulate a common values that there is no challenge, there is no conflict between faith and science. And that's why I tried to allude it when I talked about quantum physics, that there is consciousness of the matter, and the shay is not only a material thing, but rather there is an idea of a spiritual world, a sacred world around us. Our earth is a masjid, and I think we need the scholars in the Muslim Ummah, Istac and the Comstac. We have a mission to influence the global agenda and to mainstream faith and spirituality in the global discourse. This is our mandate.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Prof. Odeh, for the answer. In fact, just to add here, our university and the rector and the scholars here are proposing something called SDG 18. SDG 18 because there are 17, and SDG 18 is about sustainability values for sustainable development. So I think this comes along with the framework of Prof. Odeh, and I think we will benefit a lot from his articulation. There is another question, Prof, here. Thank you, Prof, for such mind-blowing lecture. My questions are, number one, warning about climate change were made for at least 20 years ago. Only recently has awareness spread about its danger. Are humans too late dealing with climate change? The second question from the same participant, Sister Marriott from Colombia, from Peru. Nowadays, there is a marketing tactic called greenwashing, where companies try to portray themselves as climate friendly, even when in reality, their industrial practices hurt the climate even more. For example, petrol companies that cause oil spills in the sea, killing thousands of fish, turtles, birds. These companies always stress on sustainable energy in their advertisement. Would you agree that a lot of climate discussions nowadays include greenwashing, where the true underlying problems of climate change are hidden in marketing tactics such as not using plastic straws? Go ahead, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the first question relating to is it too late? No, it's not too late. We say that فليغرسها. Even if it's the last day of judgment and you have a small palm tree, just plant it. So I think the discourse of Muslim mission is not only to curse darkness, but to light a candle. So I think the inspiration from Surah Ar-Rum, verse 41, it tells us that بما كسبت أيدي الناس. So this imbalance is due to man-made actions. However, لعلهم يرجعون. So we need to learn from negative feedback loops, and we need to adjust our development model and reinvent our way of living and doing and working. And I think COVID-19 taught us a lot about the value of little things. Little things matter. In terms of climate change and greenwashing, yes, I think we are a median community. We are Ummah Wasat. We don't want to label the private sector as the devil. It's okay to have profit, to maximize profit, but within reason. I think we need to have allies from youth, women, private sector, public sector, and international community. I think we need to be careful of greenwashing. There is a lot of it happening, but also there is also social responsibility. I think we need to have bridges between private sector, civil society, and government. We need to create a common word, kalima sawa, and we need to agree, educate the private sector that we live on the same ship, and if this ship breaks, it will be another Titanic. So we need to have a Noah Ark rather than a Titanic. This would be our message.
Thank you, Prof, for the wise answer. Anyone of our audience in the Zoom here would like to ask directly, Professor, you may raise your hand. I will go to another question from the Zoom, and for those who want to ask directly, please prepare yourself. Prof, there is another important question here from our Dr. Malik Alias. He is one of our scholars here in Istac. To what extent does recognizing a sacred earth matches that of the human other? Should one have priority over the other in curriculum and social policy?
Well, absolutely. I think when we say the other, if we respect nature and the butterfly or the star, we respect all human, all living species. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If we protect, if we give life to any human species, that means we are giving life to entire humanity. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. So human life is sacred in all its forms, in all its manifestations. And I think respecting the other and what we call the fiqh التعايش, the coexistence, is part of what we call a median community. And we can see that the Medina model, we have people with different cultural diversity, and we believe that for a resilient community, you need to respect what we call biological diversity and cultural diversity. So these diversities are crucial for having an agile and resilient community.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the answer. Professor Dulgisri.
Yeah, I would like to ask something.
Go ahead, Doctor. Dr. Dulgisri is
thank you, Prof. I'm a bit late to join your session, but my comment is this: what you said is very relevant. However, when you want to implement this in Muslim countries, sometimes you are subjected to political, issues whereby sometimes the government has to abide to certain Western dictations. Therefore, we can't fully implement, quote and unquote, the Maqasid perspective because you are subjected to Western ideas. So can you give your comment, Prof, on this?
Well, I think Malaysia are a model, a reference point for us in the Middle East, in the Muslim Ummah. They were able to influence and shape an Islamic discourse like halal food. Everybody now is respecting halal food, or what we call STEAM, not only STEM. They add art and religion. So we can, I think, influence the global discourse like STEM to have it as a stream, to add art and religion. We can influence the food from vegetarian to halal food. I think we don't want to be passive. We need to contribute to the global discourse. We need to influence and we need to convince the other. I think لتعارفوا, the idea of the purpose for creating this diversity, there is a wisdom, and this diversity can create what we call creative tension. And this creative tension through dialogue and debate, it creates a lot of maturity for both of us. So I think we need to look at the other with respect, and we need to learn from the other, and we need also to influence and try to share our thoughts with the other. I think the secular world needs the spiritual dimension and the moral economy from the Muslim Ummah. And we have a responsibility. There is a thirst from the entire world for the Muslim balanced view, the human view, to have a moral economy and to protect the family institutions, and to have a new model that is fresh, authentic, and moral.
So in other words, you are agreeable with our initiative of the SDG 18, whereby our rector is proposing the idea to introduce spirituality and sustainability as one of the dimensions.
Yes, we can either you can have it as 18, or you can have it as an underlying as a underpins all the 17 goals. You can argue that spirituality underpins everything, so it should not be number 18, but rather it is an overall, I would say, overarching goal, perhaps.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. We have another question almost similar to what Dr. Al-Jayyousi mentioned. Prof, with the domination of the Western model, how do you see the Islamic worldview, which you introduced, can provide alternatives and enter into the mainstream discourse?
That is another lecture. I think we need to have what we call a critical mass of thinkers, a critical mass. Istac and the university in Malaysia and the Islamic Ummah, we need to have a critical mass of thinkers that can articulate these models. It starts with local solutions at neighborhood level, at advocacy level, at neighborhood level. If you have a sustainable village, a sustainable municipality, a sustainable city that is self-sufficient, you can create a local solution. So local can be global. So we can start from small solutions and scale it up from municipality, village level, neighborhood level. That's one dimension. And I think now with the global internet, we can have also leverage by harnessing global ICT technologies in blockchain and fintech, like as I mentioned, the Zakah or Waqf model. So I think we have huge opportunities to benefit from diaspora in Europe and US and Asia and Africa, to make sure that the Muslim Ummah is there is a huge intellectual capital, but we need a compass, we need a sense of direction. I think we have a lot of institutions like the Hima, the Waqf, and the Green Sukuk and Islamic finance, but I think if we are able to create sustainable city, a sustainable village, sustainable nation in Malaysia or other countries in Asia or Africa, I think the people will listen and will respect our narrative.
Yeah, thank you, Prof, for the question. Prof. Osman, you wanted to comment?
No, I'm enjoying listening.
Alhamdulillah. Let me go to the next question here. Just a second. This question is more maybe towards the theoretical perspective. How do you, Prof, how do you see Islamic worldview contributing to a more balanced philosophy of science and management of the outputs of science and technology?
Sure, absolutely. I think if you look at the methodology of research in terms of duality between or polarization between positivism versus constructivism, sustainability can have many manifestations. It can be created through constructivism, I believe, and we need to have more research on phenomenology and grounded theory to provide solutions at a local level from farmers, from women, youth. So I think localizing SDGs and having our own local, authentic, traditional, genuine solutions can present a new paradigm for development. So I think we can move from what we call pragmatism and positivism to constructivism, and apply more grounded theory approach to develop our own theory of development. And that's, I think universities are well equipped to do this task.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Also, we have one question in the Zoom here, talking about Maqasid Sharia. The brother Nur Muhammad Khalid asks, some feel that the subject of Maqasid is overemphasized and cannot be invoked for everything. Do you believe that relating Maqasid to sustainability is relevant?
Absolutely. I think Ibn Ashur, after Shatibi, Ibn Ashur, he wrote his some interesting research that protecting the environment, taking care of the environment is part of Maqasid. So I think Ibn Ashur already, one of the good scholars who already articulated that protecting the environment is part of the Maqasid. I think we don't want to overdwell over Maqasid as a panacea or a vehicle, but it's a lever, it's a framework that can help us to set priorities and to look at trade-offs and to have some sort of balance and responsible development.
Thank you, Prof. Another question here says, just a second, Prof. If someone raises the charge that your recommendations appear to be a metaphysics of pantheism, how would you respond to such a claim?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can you please repeat it? Sorry.
Okay. What if someone raises the charge that your recommendation that you mentioned appear to be like a metaphysics of pantheism? How would you respond to such a claim?
Well, I believe there is oneness of our perception of reality.
Yes.
Now people in quantum physics talk about parallel worlds and the idea of superposition and string theory. I think we need to harness science not only to influence, to convey the message of Islam. I think it's when I understand this, the ayah سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين أنه الحق أولم يكفي بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. My understanding of the verse is that any scientific exploration is not a challenge to faith, but rather it's a revelation. It's a new window of opportunity to convey Islam. So I think we need to harness new discoveries in science. That was my intention when I talk about NASA and the galaxies, is to look at science as a window for understanding spirituality.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Can I call Prof. Khaliq Ahmed would like to comment or give a question? Go ahead, Prof.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair to both of you. Prof. Odeh, actually wonderful presentation. Just my observation, and it's not a question, and to help you. If we don't do that, then the nature, in quote unquote, God knows how to do it. There would be another COVID for another 3 years, 4 years to suspend the system, like what has been being alarmed for last 10 years or 2 decades about the global warming of the ozone layer. So what happened? The COVID came, all the chimneys, all the aircraft, and all those pollutants have been grounded. So give the breathing time for the ozone layer to become thick. Because after 27 kilometers up there, 5 kilometers is the ozone layer due to the global warming, which was getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So when this COVID came, every economic activities that was source of, diluting the ozone layer has been stopped. And that gave the opportunity for the correction. Like the market people believe that market corrects itself. So I can see that nature corrects itself. So if the people don't behave, then God knows how to discipline them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely, I fully agree with you, and I think I fully agree with you. ليذيقهم بعض الذي كسبوا, so they will taste some of their misconduct. So there is always negative feedback loops. We learn from our mistakes, but we need لعلهم يرجعون. We need to go back and rethink and have more maturity and rushd to go back to our own compass, to have the real our GPS, our social GPS, and to go in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. There is another question here and suggestion also. Our participant here suggests that the book of Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi to be taught to our university students, those who are taking Worldview, Islam knowledge and civilization, and other related human sciences, as he managed to articulate many Islamic concepts in a very beautiful manner, linking them with policy things, with culture, with civilizational dialogue, he made the concepts of Islam very living, like the ta'arafu, like arham, like I think that's one of the suggestions. And then he asks about, he wants to know more your idea about this principle of mizan or balance. Maybe he needs some more.
I think mizan, al-kitab wal-mizan. If we look at Surah Al-Hadid, in Surah Al-Hadid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned both al-kitab and al-mizan. And there are some literature on al-mizan which talks about justice, harmony, order, balance, all sorts of codes of conduct, if you wish, or social charter. I think UNIP has an initiative called Mizan for a declaration for climate change. I was a member of this committee. They produced a declaration for climate change from Islamic perspective. So I think Mizan is to realize that there is a balance, and CO2 emissions are part of the balance. If we exceed our consumption, that means we are disrupting this balance. So this realization of this harmony is, as stewards and guardians, we need to make sure that we maintain this balance. This is in a nutshell.
Yes, thank you, Prof, for all your very beautiful and deep answers to the questions of our audience. Can I see if there is any one in our Zoom here would like to further ask any question, as the time is approaching, is already almost 4 o'clock, so that we can, inshallah, end our professorial lecture today. And before that, we will have our dua, inshallah, and the conclusion. Can I see if, okay, someone have a question here? Okay, maybe this brother, he says, can I have access to the book of Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi?
I think Ikem already bought the book. The book is available on the web. The Arabic version is a free domain. It's waqf. It's open source. The Arabic version. You can download it. The Arabic version is available on the web. It's free of charge. But I think the English version, the publisher, it's available on the website. I think copy already. Ikem has some copies as well.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead. Yes.
Please, in fact, I will include her in our visitor group.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Another question, Prof, here in our Zoom, maybe will be the last question. Is Professor suggesting that global pandemic that freezes all economic activity is a natural intervention by Allah to reduce ozone layer depletion? Any comment on this, Prof?
Well, any mishappening, there is a reason. Absolutely. There is a wisdom. Sometimes we don't understand the wisdom in the present time, but Allah is the wise, and any hardships can have also lessons learned. What's about having to be mindful and to have this consciousness is to learn from any disaster, any crisis. Usually there are the uses of adversities. So we need to learn from good and bad experiences. And I think the COVID, there are many lessons, as I alluded to, in terms of supply chains and deglobalization and the value of public sector. Many lessons can be learned, but Allah is the wise, and we can learn from good and bad events.
Thank you, Prof. MashaAllah. That's a great answer. We have Dr. Abdul Hamid would like to give a direct question, and I think will be the last question, so that we end our lecture, inshallah, on time as planned. Dr. Abdul Hamid.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullahu khairan. This was a very important lecture, very useful, as Prof. Abdul Aziz described it. Jazakumullahu khairan. Actually, the ayah you have recited is لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُم يَرْجِعُونَ. You have recited أَتْكَسَبُونَ. Jazakumullahu khairan. I was asking about, I don't know, is it a question or a comment about the terminologies used in Al-Quran Al-Kareem. Like you have just mentioned i'mar, very important concept, i'mar, because we relate i'mar to colonization in Arabic. We say istihmar, though the correct description is istihmar, like Malik bin Nabi said. It is not istihmar, it is istihmar. So this could be donkeyization. they make us as donkeys, because istimar is a chronic terminology. It is so positive, but I don't know, somehow we use it in a very negative way. So we say al-mustamir. I would like you, Prof, to shed light on this concept of istimar, and why people are not that interested in i'mar, though it is very Quranic terminology. Shukran, Prof.
Thank you. I think as I mentioned, during colonialism, the Muslim Ummah were at the operational level. They were not at the visionary or strategic planning. So we have 3 or 4 generations of the Muslim Ummah. They were only at the lower level of the economic ladder. So their mental capacity, the intellectual capacity to do foresight and planning and high level cognitive analysis was limited. Maybe that's one of the reasons So they were only looking at the lower part of the Maslow's law, the physical needs, just to eat, to have, to maintain the physical needs. So they were not moving in terms of security or self-actualization or looking beyond the present moment. So we are still living part of the colonization. I think what's the key message is we need to decolonize the mind. We need to localize benefits. We need to globalize consciousness, and we need to regionalize vision. So we need to work at 3 levels in order to make a dent for the development and change the current discourse and narrative.
Thank you, Prof, for your answer. Towards the end of our 11th Istac-World Professorial lecture, we are very glad to have our Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi with us today. We have learned a lot of things, and he has opened the horizon wide for us to really re-understand, re-articulate things related to the understanding of the Islamic worldview. I think he has presented a great understanding and approach to the Islamic worldview and the main core concepts and values in Islam. He has covered a lot of aspects of this Islamic worldview, starting from the philosophical and the Tawhidic epistemological articulation down to earth, down to policy making in issues related whether to society or to family or to environment or to economy or to many other things. So the concepts, the way how our professor used the concepts today gives them a living context. When he speaks about kalima sawa or ummah wasat or mizan or arham or justice or ihsan or mas'uliyah or responsibility or fitra or spirituality or growth or economics or halal or hayatun tayyibah, all this made this concept very living in this narrative. I really thank our professor for all this articulation and hope that our professors, scholars, researchers, postgraduate students, professionals, and those who are dealing with the issues of sustainable development in the Ummah can benefit a lot from this. Inshallah, this will not be the only lecture that our professor will be presenting here in Istac, but we will make sure that we benefit from his ilm and knowledge in many other occasions and events, be it conferences, lectures, or inviting him to be with us for a while to share his knowledge and ilm, brothers and sisters. In the end of our lecture today, I would like just to say that our professor has summarized and put the idea of how Islamic worldview, spirituality, their values and ethics can play a greater role in what's happening today in the world. It's just a matter of Muslims, and as he said, matter of ijtihad, an application of ijtihad, and how to provide these alternatives. And I think he proposed something great. He said that we need many people to engage in promoting this narrative and this model. By doing so, our individuals, our communities, our institutions, whether at the government level, the civil society level, the NGOs level, and the normal daily life level, if this narrative is promoted, I think we will find what to tell the world, not only theoretically, but they can see by themselves how Islam can be a solution. With this one, I would like to call upon our Associate Professor, Dr. Nick, the Deputy Dean, Student Affairs in Istac here, to read the dua, and after that we will end our 11th professorial lecture by having a photo together, and inshallah we will be sending the certificate and the certificate of appreciation of this lecture to our professor in the nearest time, inshallah. Dr. Nick, go ahead.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, our respected Dean, Prof. Abdul Aziz. Thank you, our great Iwpl 11 speakers for such mind-blowing lecture. We are learning a lot from this productive and very informative lecture. Respected brothers, professors, brothers and sisters, let us ask Allah to bless, to give us, to grant us barakah, serenity and harmony in our life. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma inna nas'aluka minal khairi kullihi ajilihi wa ajilihi ma 'alimna minhu wa ma lam na'lam. Wa na'udzu bika minasy syarri kullihi ajilihi wa ajilihi ma 'alimna minhu wa ma lam na'lam. O Allah, inspire us with good ideas, protect us from the evil of ourselves, protect us from any calamities, and teach us from your infinite knowledge what we do not know. Glory be to you, O Allah. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa' wa min qalbin la yakhsha' wa min nafsin la tashba' wa min da'watin la yustajabu laha. O Allah, we are seeking refuge in you from a knowledge that is not beneficial. We are seeking refuge from a heart that does not tremble, from a soul that is not satisfied, from a dua that is not answered. O Allah, we have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al fina shaqiyan wa la mahruma wa adkhilna bi rahmatika fi ibadika as-salihin. Rabbana iftah bainana wa bain qaumina bil haqq wa anta khairul fatihin. Allahumma ahsin 'aqibatana fil umuri kulliha wa ajirna min khizyi ad-dunya wa 'adzabil akhirah. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina 'adzaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. Alhamdulillah, we come to the end of our 11th Istac-World Professorial Lecture. Once again, a great congratulations and a great warm salutation to our Professor Odeh Al-Jayyousi for this great lecture. I would like to thank all the participants who are with us here in the Zoom and the YouTube, and also we will inshallah send to you the video of this lecture and also the presentation of our professor. And let's open the we will have a group photo before we end, inshallah. If you can open your camera, our technical team will just take a photo so that we keep it in our record, inshallah. Could you please open your camera for a short while? Go ahead, Brother Morgani. You can have the photo. Okay. One more time. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Thank you, Prof. Odeh, for this great lecture. May God bless you. Inshallah. Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah.